Okay, I am in LaSalle, Illinois at Stage 212. This is a little weird. They're playing Little Women at 2 o'clock. It's 1:27. I don't have a ticket, and I know that they're sold out. But I don't know if they have any kind of process. A lot of theaters I've been to this year have some kind of process where even if the show is sold out, you can wait and see if someone doesn't show up. So I'm going to try that. Now, I'd left Matilda a couple hours ago, or an hour and a half ago or so. If I had paid more attention to the details, I would have planned ahead, and knowing that Matilda was at 10 a.m. and this was at 2 p.m., I would have bought a ticket for this. But I had forgotten that Matilda was so early. And there was another showing of Matilda at 3 o'clock. But that one was also sold out, and I could have waited to see if someone didn't show up. Or they also sell standing room only tickets, but I didn't want to get into that for reasons that I'll get into later. You may have already seen, depending on if and when and how this portion of the video gets posted. But that theater was very far away from where I live, and this theater is quite close to where I live. So I didn't want to wait around for hours to maybe get an uncomfortable seat or a standing seat. But before I left Matilda, I was like, it's still early in the day. And lots of times, on Sundays, they have earlier showings, and sometimes they'll also have later showings. Couldn't find anywhere on my list that I know of that was doing a late showing other than back in Moline, which is the opposite side of the state. And I want to say maybe there was another one somewhere, but it wasn't a show that I was interested in, or that was at a price point I wanted to do. So this is the only one, the Super Bowl's tonight. So I think a lot of them were avoiding the normal 5, 6, 7 o'clock time slots. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to see if they have a policy for that and try to get in to see Little Women. Little Women isn't something I'm super excited about, but because this theater is close to me, I just kind of want to see the venue. So we'll see what happens. I'm not sure. Even if there's a possibility that I can stay, I'm not sure I will decide to go through with it or not, but we'll see what happens. Okay, so Little Women. Not a show that I was particularly interested in seeing. Not something that I think I'm the target demographic for. Pretty much the only thing I could have told you about Little Women is that I think it's the book that Joey reads in Friends. But I saw the opportunity. Decided I wanted to check out the venue more than anything, because that's like the closest theater to me, and I've never been there. So even though it was sold out and I didn't have a ticket, I was able to get someone's ticket that didn't show up. And I got an actual ticket. Morton. And as I said, I don't think I'm this show's target demographic. I didn't expect to really like it all that much. But right away, from the opening song, with the pirate kind of guy, I guess, the sword fighting scene that she's describing in her stories, and her personality, and the blood and guts of everything, like, right away I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can get into this. This is cool. And really enjoyed the first act. The singers were really good. This was my 11th show so far this year. And this is the first one that uses mics that didn't have any mic issues. No static. No characters coming on stage speaking before their mic was turned on. So whoever was running the sound on this show, well done. Because every other show I've seen this year that has had mics, which I think is all but 2 of them, has had at least one, if not both of those issues. And this show did not. Singers were really good. Good acting. the back set. I don't know what you call it when it's not a backdrop. It's just a big set, but it's like in the back. But it was just one big set in the background, and then the furniture in front changed, um, which is fine. They did a nice job of when the furniture changed. They changed the lighting colors to help keep track of where you were, which house you were in. By the way, my cat is playing with trash, so if you hear weird noises, that's what that is. Better that than scratching me. Um, so yeah, I quite enjoyed the first act. I liked the characters. I liked how the story was going. I liked the song. Oh, here she comes. Now she's coming to scratch me. But then the second act happened. And maybe I missed something. Maybe I interpreted the show weird. But, like, I feel like all of the relationships that were built up in the first act and established and were going somewhere, almost none of those continued. And all of the emotional beats in the second act were between characters that didn't really have a relationship established. So I'm just gonna go through them. So I guess spoilers for Little Women, if you care about that kind of thing. But Act 1, you're Joe, main character, right? And there's a little bit at the very beginning with I don't remember his name, Professor Bear. I honestly forgot about that guy pretty quickly because he was just in the first scene, and then that's all he was in the first act. Very much removed from the rest of the show. So almost nothing with him. Big relationship with Laurie. I don't know what his full name is, like Theodore Lawrence III. And why are you so loud? Why do you have to be so loud when I make videos, huh? Now she's chewing on plastic. You have the four sisters. Which, by the way, okay, I can't. You gotta stop. You gotta stop it. Stop that. Go away. Is there a reason that they call their mother Marmee? Is that a weird old timey name for mother? Like I think that's just her name, Marmee. But why do they all call their mother by her name? If someone knows the answer to that, please tell me, because that was bothering me the whole time. I thought it was a fifth sister for a while. But I'm like, it really seems like it's their mother. No, stop chewing plastic. Ugh. So, yeah, if you know why that is, please tell me. But this family, obviously they're sisters, so they all have relationships to each other. But the strongest relationship emotionally in the first act is between Joe and, gosh, which one is it? I want to say Amy, the youngest one. I think Meg is the one that marries the tutor, and Beth is the one that dies, and Amy's the one that marries Lori. So you have this conflict, this strong conflict between Joe and Amy, because Amy looks up to Joe and doesn't get the attention that she wants and doesn't get stuff for herself. She just gets Joe's hand-me-downs and the other hand-me-downs, and she wants to go to the ball. She wants Joe to give her invitation. Joe won't do that. Amy burns her manuscript, so then Joe doesn't talk to her for like 3 weeks. Amy almost dies because she goes skating because she wants to be with Joe, but she's keeping her distance, so she goes to a dangerous spot. Like, huge context between Amy and Joe. And then they almost don't interact at all in the second act. And in the second act, Joe's big relationship beats are with Beth. And in the first act, Beth's biggest relationship connection was with Mr. Lawrence over the piano. Because his dead wife played the piano and Beth plays the piano. And so there's a little bit of continuation with that. In the second act, he gives Beth his wife's old piano, but like it doesn't really go anywhere. And then Beth dies, and there's this big scene with Beth and Joe where it's just like, oh, you were always my favorite sister. You know, I don't remember the exact words that they use, but like it made it seem like they had the closest connection. And I'm like, that's not what we saw in Act One. And not that she was close with Amy, but like that's what the story was focusing on in terms of Joe's family, is her tension and resolution with Amy. And then that's just like basically absent from the second act, except for Amy then marries or gets engaged to and then marries Laurie, who was Joe's romantic interest in the first act. Those two have a very strong relationship and a strong friendship that is built up throughout the first act, and then it's just done. And they have almost no interaction in Act Two. They have a little bit, but now suddenly out of nowhere, while Amy has been gone with Aunt March, right, over in Europe, Laurie also happened to be there. And they but they reconnected and fell in love, and now they're getting married. And that's not what was built up in Act One. That's not where the story was going. And like, I'm pretty sure I read that the book this is based on is semi-autobiographical. So, okay, fine. Real life doesn't always make sense, but like, this is a show. And the story for the show does not flow, bro. So Joe's relationship with Laurie goes nowhere. Joe's relationship with Amy goes nowhere. But Amy and Laurie get a relationship payoff that wasn't ever set up or built. They try to have this emotional moment between Joe and Beth that wasn't set up, so I didn't feel anything. They don't even really, like, Beth just dies, and then they say, oh, she died. Like, there's not a big emotional moment, even though it seems like it should have been. Meg is just Meg. Shut up, Meg. Doing her own things with the tutor. That's fine. It doesn't really go anywhere either. They have kids. That's all that happens with that. Nothing really happens with the mom. Like, there's a little bit where Joe is, like, accusing the mom of just moving on like nothing ever happened, and the mom's like, is that what you think I'm doing? But then like they don't have a conversation about that. They don't it's the word I'm looking for, rectify. They don't reconcile that the fact that Joe is wrong about that. And then Beth just dies. This thing with Mr. Lawrence and kind of his like Scroogian arc of being a bitter old rich man that, oh, it turns out he's not that bad. That doesn't really go anywhere. And then in Act 2, Joe now has this undeveloped romantic relationship with Professor Bear, who I had forgotten about because he was barely in Act 1. And the whole thing is that she was so annoying when they both boarded in the same house, and now she's gone, and he misses how annoying she was. I'm like, that's the best we got? Really? Who else is in this? There's not a lot of characters, honestly. I don't remember who Ivy is. Or Paisley. Yeah, like half these characters I don't. Oh, those are the actors' names. I'm so stupid. Okay, so Joe, Margaret, Beth, Amy. Where's Aunt March? Aunt March, again, the whole first act, pretty much her only relationship is with Joe. And she's challenging Joe to change herself and Aunt March's mind better herself. And Joe is doing all of these things and making all of these changes and changing her lifestyle and holding back from expressing her opinion to build this relationship with Aunt March. And then Act 1 ends and it's just like, nope, I'm done with you. And then in Act 2, she's all focused on Aunt Big. Whoever. The young one. Amy, I think. And it's just like these relationships are built up and then dropped, and then these other relationships are like, oh, by the way, during the intermission, this stuff happened. And now you're going to see the payoff to that stuff that you didn't see. You don't see the payoff for the stuff you saw built up, but we're going to give you payoff for stuff you didn't see get built up. Why? Why? I don't like it. I don't know who Mr. Oh, John Brooke is the tutor. Okay. So yeah, I think that's about all of it. Like I said, there's not that many characters. So the only, and like Laurie and Mr. Lawrence, they don't really have a relationship, even though they're grandfather and grandson. Like, that's not important to the story. They don't have a strong connection anywhere. The tutor, that's just like why he's there. He doesn't have any big moments with Laurie in the second act from being his tutor. So really the only relationship that carries through both acts is that which one? Meg? I think. The one that eventually marries John Brooke. She meets him pretty early in the first act. Yeah, scene 3 is the ball. And that kind of develops. It's referenced more throughout Act 1. And then it continues on into Act 2. Then I think they get married off screen. Because the wedding at the end is Amy's wedding to Laurie. So they get married during the intermission, but then it's said that they have kids, and he's still there in Act 2, and he's kind of giving Amy advice. So, like, that's the only relationship that's built up in the first act and continues in the second act. It doesn't have a big payoff, but not every relationship needs to have a payoff, but it'd be nice if one relationship that got built up in Act 1 had a payoff in Act 2, but none of them do. But there's at least one that continues, but it doesn't build to anything. So, I'm a fan of Act 1. I would like to see that act paid off. And if Act 2 had been built up and supported, I may have enjoyed that too. But the story that's here is not a cohesive story. And again, I get that might be based on real life, and real life isn't always a cohesive story, but take some artistic liberties, for goodness sakes. This is a musical. Music's pretty good. Singers are really good. No annoying people. I lied. I forgot. The people next to me were nice. No annoying people behind me. But one row in front of me, somebody brought a baby. Why would you bring a baby to a musical? They're loud. There's loud sounds and bright flashing lights. So guess what? The baby cried a lot. I know I sound like a baby crying, but really? A baby? This is my 11th show this year. Haven't seen any babies at any other shows. Who brings a baby? And I don't mean a toddler. Also probably not a good idea. Literally a 5-month-old baby. I know because she told someone. Because they asked how old the baby was. 5-month-old baby. She's not going to enjoy it. And everyone in the theater, it's not a big theater, couldn't hear almost an entire scene because the baby was crying so loud. Baby cried quite a bit. But there was one time in particular, it would not stop. And eventually she got up and left. After several minutes of the baby crying nonstop. Don't bring babies to musicals. What are you doing? That was annoying. But clearly I nearly forgot it because I almost missed it. So that's not what ruined the show. That was in Act 1 though. So maybe there was something in Act 1 that would have helped bridge to Act 2 that I missed because of the baby. But I don't think so. I think just the story didn't connect. So, as much as I liked the venue, and as much talent as there was on stage and behind the scenes. Great sound design, again. Good use of lighting. I can't say that I enjoyed the show, the story. I enjoyed the visuals and the songs. But, like, this isn't something I would. And again, I don't think I was in the target demographic anyway, but this isn't something that I would seek out again. Because it doesn't flow, it doesn't follow, it doesn't pay off how a story is supposed to pay off. People must like this, though. I know there's a movie. Is that how the movie goes? I don't know. If you've seen the movie, let me know. If you like this show, let me know why. Does none of that stuff bother you? I know sometimes that can be really picky and overly critical, but I'm trying not to be in these live shows because I'm just trying to appreciate these things for what they are, whether or not they're my cup of tea. But, like, that's just not how stories work. You know, you don't tell a story. I mean, unless it's supposed to be an anti-punchline type of comedy story. You wouldn't tell someone about an hour and a half about these two people that had a strong friendship and a budding romance and then be like, oh, and then he married her sister. Like, it's not a satisfying end to that story. And I've mentioned before, I like a downer ending, but that's not even a downer ending because everyone was just cool with it. Sister was just cool with it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a grumpy old man, but this was not the show for me. Luckily, it was the second show I saw today, and I enjoyed Matilda more. But that's going to do it for this one. Most people are probably watching the Super Bowl right now. That's also not the story for me. But that's going to do it for Little Women. Yep. I was going to add on, but I don't need to. So, thank you for watching. Have a good day.